I've been making games for over a year now, and since the very beginning, I've always wanted to make a horror game. Now, you could technically say I completed that in my last video. However, there were a lot of things that got cut just to get the video out in a timely manner. That being 2 months. But now I have a way to make a good game and YouTube videos. I'm making a devlog. As soon as I finished my last game, I began working on the concept for this one, starting with the 2 biggest issues of the last one, the gameplay and the design. Learning from my mistakes, I knew I needed to start with the gameplay before I worked on anything else. And after a week or so of concepting, I felt like I had something good. Then there was the design. My biggest issues last time was the size of the map and the more realistic style I was going for, which is not good for someone who doesn't really know how to make textures or model. So this time, like in my first video, I decided to go for a more retro PS1 style game. But now I'll get to work on the game. Now, while past me sets up a basic 3D controller, thank you brackies, I'll explain the concept of the game. A while back, I saw this video by by George Browning about urban exploring in Disney, which if you don't know what urban exploration is, it's essentially exploring around abandoned man-made structures. You, the player, goes to explore an abandoned warehouse when you become locked inside. And the only way to escape is an old 1970s computer left in the building. And now with the basic player movement set up, it was time to model the computer. As you've probably gathered, I'm not very good at modeling. So with this, I took my time and actually followed a reference image, which is probably the first step you should take when making a model. And then to get the retro feel, I gave all my textures a posterization effect. And after a few hours, I came out with this, which I was actually really proud of. With that done, it was time to add the functionality of the computer. First, by adding the ability to zoom in on the screen, which was definitely my first hurdle in the making of this. I used a similar method as my last game to move the character into the right position, but messing with the rotation, I went through tutorial after tutorial, through the documentations, quaternion lerps, and rotate towards, but half the time, I would go in, click on the screen, my player would start moving towards it, and then start having a seizure. I got so bored, I just started messing with post-processing for a bit, and then I came back to the issue, and finally, oh no, it didn't work. But then, an hour and a half later, I finally got it working. Lucky for me, my next task wouldn't be nearly as hard. But before I explain that, I'll first talk about the actual gameplay. As I said before, you're locked in a room and all you have to escape is a 1970s computer. The way to escape is by running a series of commands to reboot the system. Essentially, you have 3 power banks. To check the progress on all of them, you simply type the status command. Once you're there, you can check each individual block by typing the block command, along with the number of block you want to check. To charge the blocks, you have 4 commands. The run command, which simply starts charging the block, the boost command, which charges twice as fast, but is a lot louder and more likely to attract other creatures that could come in your room, the overdrive command, which charges at an insane 5 times speed, but along with the noise, has a chance of crashing, losing all your progress on the current block. And lastly, there's the halt command, which I'll get to that one a little bit later. With that out of the way, it was time for my next task, user input. Now, last time I needed input like this, I just used big buttons in the game that you could click. Now, that worked for 5 or 6 digits, but with a full-size computer, that wasn't gonna cut it. So I started work on getting the actual keyboard inputs by using an input field, which was actually really easy to use. I just checked if the player was clicked on the screen, used the activate input field function, let the player type whatever they want, and then store that into a variable which I could use however I needed. After that, I used a horrendous amount of if statements to see if the player had typed one of the key commands, because I don't know how to use switch statements, or if this is even where you'd use one. Alright, now I had completed the player movement, the ability to click the screen, the ability to take user input, and check if that input is a command. The last thing I had to program was the main gameplay logic. And it wasn't that hard. It only took up 50% of the recordings. I'll explain it simply. Basically, you can break it down into 2 components, the blocks and the bars. Each block has a certain amount of bars. The first has 5, the second has 8, and the last has 12. For each block, there are 3 main variables, the num to reach, and the current bar. When you type the run command, the num starts counting up, the boost counts up faster, and the overdrive counts up even faster. And halt stops the num from rising. Once num is greater than or equal to num to reach, num is set to 0, and the current bar is increased by 1. Repeating the process until the current bar is equal to the number of bars on the block. Now, I make it all sound really complicated, but honestly, there were just a few simple bug fixes. and most of my time was spent just making and placing all the assets. If you add up all the bars, there are 25, and that's not counting the extra 25 that are on the status screen. So in total, I had to place 50 bars and make sure all their animations were right, and because of those bugs, I had to change them a couple times. Also, I just realized I completely forgot to mention what the halt command does. Basically, I just added this generator, which for now is just a cube, that when you click, it shuts off the computer system. Now, if you haven't run the halt command, all of your progress on the current block will be lost. But now, the main gameplay was done. And originally, that's where the video was going to end. But as you might can tell, the game isn't much to look at right now. So I decided to try and model the room, and it went about as well as you'd expect. I started by looking up a tutorial on how to make a simple floor plan in Blender. But when that was done, I didn't know what to do. First, I tried messing with textures, but when that didn't look good, I tried decorating, and then when that didn't look good, I went back to textures, and I just couldn't get it right no matter what I tried. It just looked awful. So at some point, I decided, screw it. I'm just going to put what I have in Unity and see what it looks like. And wow, the difference with the lighting and the post-processing was unbelievable. It actually started to look like how I pictured it in my head. And then the cherry on top was the retro filter that I used in my very first video, and this is what it looks like. So I modeled a couple old school computer parts, plopped them around the room, and this is where I'm at. Overall, I'm super happy with how the game's turning out. When I first started modeling the room, I seriously considered if I could even do this. And I think this game has a few things up on the Cosmic Corpse. Mainly the style. I always knew I wanted my game to have some sort of style, and I really love the look of It Steals, Iron Lung, and Buckshot Roulette. The realistic style of the Cosmic Corpse really limited me, because I pretty much had to download all my models. Another thing the game has going for it is the way I plan to do the series. With the Cosmic Corpse, I really wanted to get it out in one video, maybe two. But with this one, I plan to take as many as I need so I can do more stuff and try more things and fix things that I will definitely mess up. All of those I really had trouble doing with the Cosmic Corpse. Now on to the matter of this channel. A week from today, as this is being posted, I'll be going to college. I've already shipped out all my stuff. In the time that I've been working on this video, my setup has gone from this to this. Luckily for me, that hasn't affected the video making process too much, but it definitely has slowed things down. And in 3 weeks, I'll be a full-time student working a part-time job. Now, I really don't know what that means for the future of my channel. I'm going to keep trying to make videos, and at the very least work on this game. But it might be a bit quiet for the next month or so, which I guess isn't too unusual for my channel. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. Subscribe.